Good morning, students. In this video, we are going to start with your new chapter, that is chapter number 5, the Muslim League. So here, let's quickly get down with the explanation. I'll be reading it up for you and then I'll be explaining you accordingly, paragraph wise and the lines accordingly. So let's quickly get down to the explanation of the chapter 5, the Muslim League. If you don't have this particular page and things, don't get confused. It is all with the different name, different things, and pages might be different as per the edition, but all this, the content is what we are supposed to be doing in the syllabus. So let's move on with the syllabus accordingly. First of all, when we talk about the Muslim League, we need to understand the growth of communalism. That means the communities having a rift, a gap in between, and how they divided into different groups on the basis of their religious beliefs and accordingly in the terms of various communities that we had in country. So the Hindus and Muslims had lived together in our country for centuries together, but they had developed some common ways of life. But now, since both the communities were exploited by the British, they fought together, and in the first war of independence, which was basically the various revolts that took place as one whole revolt, it is called as Revolt of 1857. At that time, they all fought together against the common enemy, that was British. Such a unity between the two communities turned out to be a big dangerous thing for the British. They took it very skeptically and they decided that we need to break this unity, otherwise it would be difficult to rule the Indians. So the uprising of 1857 made the British realize that the division of the two communities is an important in order to have a longer stay or a longer rule or longer, you can say, their kingdom to sustain their powers over here in India. It is important to divide or have a division between two communities, especially these two communities which were in a way the majority. They therefore tried to sow the seed of discord between them to check the rising tide of nationalism. That means it was through the divide and rule policy that differences were created by the British between the Hindus and the Muslims, so that these two communities divide, they have a rift, they have a gap in between, and that would severely affect the entire process of nationalism and the working together of these two communities to fight for common objective. They encouraged the communal forces to wreck the national movement from within. That means people, for their own communal reasons, they were not ready to help the others, and they were, if not only this, they were even trying to destroy their particular national movements. The ultimate loss was ours, but people failed to realize this, and they, in the name of the community, their own group, they were attacking the other group, and the ultimate benefit was of the British, who were reaping all the fruits out of this, what they had sowed. They were getting all the harvest in their benefit. So they dubbed the national movement as a movement for establishing the Hindu kingdom in India, and encouraged the Muslims to set up their own separate political organization. And this was in order to have an opposition against the Congress, so that the Muslims can have their open say and they can also talk about their communities. So they were promoted, or they were, you can say, encouraged by the British that they should also have their own political all India organization, something where they can come together and put up their things. In order to put up their things, but basically British wanted them to have their orders together, demands together, put up in front of the demands of the Congress, and then there should be clashes in between. And they also made Muslims realize that India is going to be a Hindu kingdom, so in that case the situation for the Muslims will be bleak and very, you can say, hopeless. So that was the things which made them, the communities, divide with thinking about their personal objectives and goals. So the factors leading to the formation of the Muslim League, this Muslim League was the organization that was formed by the Muslims for the conditions and demands of the Muslims to be kept up in front, to voice them out in front of the British. They formed the organization called the Muslim League. So the main reasons for leading to the formation of this league was, first of all, loss of sovereignty by Mughal rulers. the British established their control and their rule in India just after dethroning the Mughals. Prior to them, they were all Mughals who were ruling over this country. Therefore, the Muslims became the bitter enemies of British because it was their people who were dethroned by the British. They participated in the Wahhabi movement, which aimed to end British dominion in India. Then they also participated in various other things like the revolt of 1857. They took active part in that particular movement also. This made the British view all the Muslims as with an eye of suspicion, that every now and then they are going to be revolting against us. This made them feel that the British government consciously discriminated against the Muslims, and they felt, or they made it very evidently clear to everyone that Muslims are the one who are the real perpetrators. They are the one who start the revolts, and even they were considered or blamed for the revolt of 1857 also. However, till 1870s, British kept favoring the Hindus. But afterwards, however, after 1870, the British government changed its attitude and followed the policy of appeasing the Muslims. Why? Because now, after 70s, then came the 80s and 90s, and the Congress was formed. So at that time, British started pleasing them, and later onwards, even forced them to make their own particular political organization, so that there should be a clash between the Congress as well as the Muslim party, whichever they will be framing. They sowed the seeds of dissension between the two communities and encouraged separatist and communal tendencies, so that everybody would be thinking about their community and nobody would be thinking about the entire nation as one whole thing, and that would be easy for British to govern and rule and maintain their dominance. So this was one of the reasons why there was the requirement of Muslim League, that Muslims wanted to have their separate communist things to be listened and heard after the policy of appeasement. Then next is British policy of divide and rule. Divide and rule policy was the one which sowed the seed of the differences between the two communities, and this made Muslims realize that Hindus they were fed in such a way by the British that India is going to be a Hindu kingdom, so they need to think about their well-being, and that could be done only once they make an organization which would be hearing their problems and taking their problems up to the government officials, and then forcing them to do something for the benefit of their community as well. So they required an all-Indian organization, and that was the requirement for Muslim League. That was the factor. Next, we see relative backwardness of Muslim community in education, trade and industry. Now, most of the people in the Hindu community, they sent their children to the missionary schools and the Christian schools and the English schools, English medium schools. All that were run and governed by the British. But Muslims, as they were not given proper support by the British, their children did not go to most of these colleges and schools, and as a result, it led to the educational backwardness of the entire community. Then secondly, those children, especially the Hindus, those who were studying in those schools, they got better job opportunities and they were competent enough to take up the jobs, whereas in the Muslim community they were not able to take up those jobs because of the lack of the proper and required qualifications. So because of that, they lagged in terms of trade, industry and all the different sectors of economy. So that is the reason why they decided that even our people should also have all these opportunities. We should have our own schools which should be run on the Western education pattern and lines, and then we should be making our people competent enough to make all the, you can say, trade and competent enough to take up the jobs, trade, industries, everything. So for that reason, it could be done only once you get handy with the jobs and properties in the education setup. That can be done when you have your own organization working for the benefit of your people and asking and requesting government to also interfere and do something better for your community as well. So that is why they required all this Muslim community or Muslim party. I am not calling it as Muslim League because right now it was not formed. It was just an idea of the party or a group that was supposed to be working for the Muslims. Then we talk about one of the important things. I'm not taking all the other points in detail because there's not much to be explained in them. You can read them. They are all in points and you will understand each and everything there. But this point, the fourth point, I am taking in detail because it is more to be explained. It is the role of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, one of the important people. You should be marking this point as important because there will be many short questions that can be framed from this. So it was Sir Syed Ahmad Khan who was an educationist and a social reformer. He first of all, in the earlier phase, he considered Hindus and Muslims to be one qawm. One qawm means one nation, one group, and he founded the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College. So at that time, according to him, we were all together, they are all together, communities are all one, but one nation. They cannot be divided into two groups, all those things. They formed Oriental College, Anglo-Oriental College, that was in Aligarh, and both Hindu and Muslim patrons were there in this particular organization. However, under the influence of the British principal of Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, that was Mr. Beg, in the 1980s, he gave up his earlier views and declared that the political interests of Hindus and Muslims are different, and that is why they cannot be termed as one nation, one group. They have their different requirements, different demands, and that is why they are two different groups. Altogether, they are two nations living within the boundaries of one nation, so they should be divided. When Indian National Congress was founded, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was the first person who opposed it, and he founded the United Indian Patriotic Association in 1888. You need to underline this. When was what was the name of the party formed by Syed Ahmad Khan? So you should know United Indian and United Indian Patriotic Association. The year you have to understand and remember always is 1888, just after the formation of, you can say, Congress. In 1885 it was formed, 86 it started working officially, and 88 it was the UIPA was formed. In this effort, he was supported by Mr. Beg, the principal of the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College in Aligarh, and Beg's idea was that Anglo-Muslim unity was possible, but Hindu-Muslim unity was impossible. That means in Muslims and British can have a particular you can say unity, but Hindus and Muslims cannot have the unity. This was the idea of Mr. Beg, and from there onwards we can say the role of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who was once considering Hindus and Muslims as two beautiful eyes of a beautiful bride called India. Today he was totally away, out of his particular prior notions, and saying that Hindus and Muslims are basically two important nations living within the boundaries of one nation, and they need to be divided. It was said that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan believed that since the Hindus formed the majority of Indian population, they would dominate the Muslims in case of a withdrawal of the British rule. He feared that if British rule leaves the country, who's going to rule the country? And it will obviously going to be on the basis of the number of the population, and that would be in the favor of Hindus because they are in majority. He felt that the continuance of British rule was a guarantee for the welfare and the progress of their community. If the British stays over here for long, then it is going to be their rule, and Muslims will also be able to understand, or you can say exploit the favors given to them by the British. But if they leave, then the Hindus will dominate and their community will come into a great danger. This was the ideas of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Therefore, he declared that if the educated Muslims support the British, the latter would reward them with government jobs and other special favors. They were the one who started preaching to everyone, all of their people, that if they are going to show their favor and loyalty towards the British will give them the government jobs also and other special favors also. So they need to show their loyalty towards the British, so that the British law and order and dominance remains over here for long, and it would be better opportunities for the Muslims under that. So this was the common idea given to the most of the people of that age. Then next is erroneous interpretation of history. History was taught in such a way that people in India, the Hindus mainly, in the school of British schools, they were taught history in such a way that the Muslims were considered as you can say the Mughals were considered as the people, those who came from the other place, and they started looting and plundering. They did a lot of damage to the country, and they were considered as the people, those who have looted the country. That is how this history was taught. History was divided into two parts. One was the Hindu time, Muslim time, and then the British era, or you can say the modern history. So that is how they divided the entire thing on the basis of religion, and it was made to believe that atrocities of the Mughals were highlighted to show that how they have done bad to the Indian who were the Hindus. So that is how communal disharmony was created by the British, in terms of showing the Muslim emperors and the Mughals as the cruel, brutal emperors, and doing all the bad to the Hindus. So that is how this Hindu-Muslim unity and division was very nicely used and exploited by the British, and that is how history was also taught in such a way that it yielded more of enmity between the two communities. And this division made the gap become even bigger, and people were considered, Hindus were taught that this land belongs to you, you are the original people, whereas these are the other community are the ones who have intruded your country and taken all the things with them. They were the one persecuting you, and they were brutal, they looted your country. So that is how it was taught. Nobody taught what British did or what British were doing there, and they were also doing the same thing, but that was not taught. It was all the good things that they are getting under the British that was highlighted, rest nothing was taught. So in a way, British was whitewashing their particular image over there, and it was exploiting or blotting the image of the Mughals and the Mughal heredity or the Muslim rulers. Next we see the rise of assertive nationalism. Assertive nationalism played an important role in the national movement, but some of their actions marked a step back in respect of the growth of national unity. How? Like the example, Shivaji festival and Ganpati festival promoted. Then in the partition of Bengal, the anti-partition movement, in that the Raksha Bandhan was celebrated. All these things were in direct relation to the Hindu culture, Hindu religion. Nothing was supposed to do with the Mughals. Like there was a great ruler of Akbar, the policies of Akbar, all those things were not even touched. So that was something which later onward created this feeling in the group of the Muslim community that every now and then India are basically referring to the Indians as the Hindus, and Muslims were not considered as in that particular league. And this was the thing which made them go away from these national movements and even from the assertive nationalism, because now they believe that this is more of the Hindu community doing it, and we are being sidelined. We are just being used to add more to the numbers. Rest nothing is done towards in the favor of our community. So these were the wrong images that were done or created by the British, and they were happily yielding all the harvest of that. Next we talk about the economic backwardness of the country. When we say economic backwardness of the country, it contributed a lot to the growth of communalism in India, because due to the British colony policies, India lacked modern traditional industrial development, and there was an acute unemployment. As a consequence, there was fierce competition among the youth for the few jobs that were available for them. This led to the people to demand reservations in jobs, and that reservation were on the basis of caste, creed, and especially religion. This led these reservations, the British used this opportunity to push further their policy of divide and rule and communal rivalry between the Hindus and the Muslims. However, the unemployed people failed to realize that the British themselves were responsible for economic backwardness. They just felt that it was the other community who's taking up their place. Hindus believed that the Muslims are trying to take up their places in the terms of reservation, whereas Muslims thought Hindus were trying to take up their places in terms of reservations. But it was none of the community believing that it was the British who were not giving them the proper jobs, and they were having more of their people filling up the places. So that is how this particular kind of unemployment and backwardness, economic backwardness, led more fierce conditions of communal rivalry and communal hatred, you can say, in a way. And this communal differences were given heightened at this time more by the British, and it was like at its peak when Hindus and Muslims were totally divided. The two communities were totally two different parts, not ready to work together, and that was something which was all in favor of Britain, and both the communities were at loss with this particular kind of rift between them. So that marks the end of this particular various causes that led to the formation of the Muslim League. Next we have the events which led to the formation of the Muslim League, and finally the formation of Muslim League. This we will be doing later onwards. All this events leading to the formation and Muslim League's formation along with the aims and objectives we will be doing in the coming up module. So kindly do read this chapter, whatever we have done. The initial points which I have not explained in detail, please go through your books, read those points, understand them. When I explain the things to you, listen to it in the videos and immediately read your books. That would be fresh, and when you read it, it will be registered in your minds and it will remain in your memory for long. So anyhow, let's end up it over here. I hope you will remember this, and any problems you can always ask me. With this, we come to the end of the module. Have a great day.